Well, Mike Johnson proposed it, and now the House has passed it. On Wednesday evening, by a vote of 336 to 95, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a two-tiered continuing resolution plan. They sent it over to the Senate, where Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer are waiting around like a couple of expectant grandpas to get a look at the new kid. There are no spending cuts. There are no changes to Biden administration policy. Basically, we're keeping everything in place that Nancy Pelosi passed last December. Boy, let me tell you, I feel really good about reducing government spending and the advancement of conservative policy in federal governance after the end of this day. So hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this here in just 1 second.
My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk.
Before we get started, would you do me some favors? If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Hit the bell for notifications, please leave a comment below, share the video around, and finally, give me a thumbs up on this thing. We are a going little concern. We'd like to be a going big concern before it's all said and done. Okay, let's get into it. The story of the day. The House of Representatives passes this CR plan, but not without controversy and not without political calculation, short and long term. Let's go straight to thehill.com and get into this. House votes to avert government shutdown. Article written by Michael Schnell. We read the following. The House on Tuesday passed a stopgap bill to prevent a government shutdown, sending the unconventional two-step continuing resolution to the Senate and marking the first major hurdle Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican Louisiana, has cleared since winning the gavel. The chamber approved the short-term funding measure in a 336 to 95 vote days before the Friday night's shutdown deadline. Two Democrats, Representatives Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts and Mike Quigley of Illinois, and 93 Republicans opposed the bill. With conservatives opposed to the spending levels in the bill, Republican leaders leaned heavily on support from Democrats, who overwhelmingly backed the legislation despite strong reservations about the unusual two-part approach. The bifurcated bill would extend funding at current levels for some agencies and programs until January 19th and all others through February the 2nd. It would also extend the authorization of programs and authorities in the Farm Bill until September 30th. The legislation now heads to the Senate, where it has support from both party leaders. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, on Tuesday said he will try to pass the continuing resolution quickly, highlighting the bipartisan desire to avert a shutdown ahead of next week's Thanksgiving holiday. Quote, "We would like to pass it as soon as possible," Schumer told reporters. "Both McConnell and I want to avoid a shutdown, so getting this done obviously before Friday at midnight. We know that the Senate has a lot of arcane rules, but McConnell and I are going to work together. We talked about this yesterday to get it done as quickly as possible." Okay, let's get into this. I said in my video yesterday that conservatives were not happy about it, and count me as one of them. We are not doing anything to reduce federal spending, which at this point stands at $2 trillion a year in annual budget deficit. Not the debt, that's at 33 plus trillion. We're now tacking on 2 trillion more to that. It's reached the point where the payments on the interest on the national debt is at $1 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unsustainable. And we elect Mike Johnson to the speakership, who, by all accounts, is the most conservative Speaker of the House in years, maybe going back to the days of Newt Gingrich in the early 1990s. And what does he do on his first major test? Poof! He punts. He punts the ball down the field all the way to January and then February with a bifurcated continuing resolution that does nothing to advance conservative policy. Boy, let me tell you, I'm feeling real good about life at this stage. Woohoo! Conservative governance. It's all the rage, baby. Oh my God. Now, we'll read further into this article. There's more comments to make, but I tell you what, if you're a conservative that wants to see reductions in federal spending, today was not exactly a good day. As a matter of fact, if you're prone to drink adult beverages, you might want to go hit the bottle. Not too hard. Remember, you've got to work tomorrow. But let's get back to this article. Again, reading from thehill.com, we see the following and read the following. Passage of the bill marks an early legislative achievement for Johnson, who was elected to the speakership less than a month ago after 3 weeks of standstill in the House following former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Republican California, removal from the role. That ouster was caused in large part by McCarthy's decision to put a clean CR on the floor and pass it with the help of Democrats, similar to Johnson's course of action. Okay, I want to correct one thing here. It wasn't just the fact that Kevin McCarthy passed a CR similar to what Johnson did. It's a whole lot of accumulated aggravation, and that was the last straw. McCarthy had told Republicans in the conference of all different ideological stripes that there were things that he would do for them, there were things that he wanted to see done legislatively, and none of it got accomplished. And the guy had a 20-year track record of telling people one thing and then doing another. No, it wasn't just the CR that he'd proposed back in October that did him in. Like I said, it was the accumulation of aggravation. But we continue with the article. Hardline conservatives said they would give Johnson some breathing room this time around, despite opposing his stopgap bill, citing his nascent speakership. Quote, "He's had 2 weeks to pass it. His predecessor had since January, and then he jammed us up against a September 30 deadline," said Representative Tim Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, one of 8 Republicans who voted to oust McCarthy. Trouble nonetheless looms for Johnson and his fractious House GOP conference as they stare down 2 funding deadlines and try to pass their remaining 5 appropriations bills, which have run into trouble on the floor and in committee. Lawmakers are also eager to button up aid for Israel, and Johnson has said he wants to tackle Ukraine funding next. Boo. Anyway, that's not in the article, by the way. Which has become a hot-button issue among Republicans. Quote, "I've been drinking from Niagara Falls for the last 3 weeks," Johnson told reporters on Tuesday. "This will allow everybody to go home for a couple of days for Thanksgiving, everybody cool off. Members have been here, as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said, for 10 weeks. This place is a pressure cooker, and so I think everybody can go home. We can come back, reset. We're going to get our group together. We're going to map out that plan to fight for our principles." Oh, yay. I feel so much better about this. Johnson rolled out his 2-step stopgap funding proposal Saturday, capping off days of anticipation regarding how the newly minted speaker would address the tall task of funding the government and averting a shutdown. Oh, I don't know. How about we address the tall task of reducing spending? That might be nice, but call me crazy if you wish. We go back to the article. The announcement followed meetings between Johnson and Republicans, during which the speaker took stock of different ideas and different strategies. Ultimately, Johnson landed upon a 2-step or laddered continuing resolution, an atypical approach to funding the government that was favored by hardline conservatives as a way to avoid the end-of-year omnibus spending bill, which is loathed by Republicans. Okay, I'll give Johnson at least credit for that much. We continue. This legislation will extend funding at current levels until January 19th for programs and agencies under 4 different appropriations bills: military construction and veterans affairs, agriculture, rural development, and food and drug administration, energy and water and development, and transportation, housing and urban development. Funding for the remaining 8 would extend at current levels through February 2nd. But in a break with his right flank, Johnson's proposal did not include any conservative policy riders or spending cuts, which hardliners, no, not hardliners, commonsensical people, have pushed for throughout the appropriations process this year. Those omissions sparked fierce opposition from hardliners and led the conservative House Freedom Caucus to take an official position against the legislation. Skipping ahead, the exclusion of spending cuts and right-wing proposals, however, bought some good faith with Democrats. The top 3 House Democrats announced shortly before the vote that they would back Johnson's proposal. Quote, House Democrats have repeatedly articulated that any continuing resolution must be set at the fiscal year 2023 spending level, be devoid of harmful cuts, and free of extreme right-wing policy riders. The continuing resolution before the House today meets that criteria, and we will support it. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York, Minority Whip Catherine Clark, Democrat Massachusetts, and Democrat Conference Chair Pete Aguilera, Democrat California, wrote in a statement. Okay, then I have a question for everybody. If the resolution to support it is the same as everything we're doing, then what the hell's the point? I'm serious. What the hell's the point? This is what it takes to get their support? This is what it takes for bipartisanship, that we have to basically give the Democrats everything that they've already got? Well, hell, if that's the case, what the hell are we doing this for? What the hell's the point of having an opposition party? If you're not going to oppose anything, why not just change party and just say, hey, why can't we have 435 Democrats in the House of Representatives? I thought the idea of two different parties is that one of them at least opposes. As I get my blood pressure under control. Democrats, however, made clear earlier in the week that they would vote against the rule governing debate on the bill, while conservatives also threatened to buck their party and oppose advancing the measure. Those converging dynamics led House GOP leaders to consider a stopgap bill under suspension of the rules, a fast-track process that avoids having to pass a rule and requires a two-thirds majority for final passage. That decision, though, sparked even more opposition from hardliners. Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, said it was a bad idea to move the bill under suspension. If it passes, but there's always consequences beyond that. Despite supporting it in large numbers, Democrats are not completely pleased with Johnson's proposal. The top lawmakers criticized the two-step approach, expressing concerns it could lead to more shutdowns, and they denounced the absence of funding for Israel and Ukraine, which President Biden included in a supplemental request in October. Quote, a CR is a bridge to a final agreement. It should be judged on how it helps facilitate our goal, which is to update the spending levels for full-year bills and the full year for 2024, said Representative Rosa DeLauro, Democrat of Connecticut, top person on the House Appropriations Committee. A so-called, quote, laddered bill makes it harder to reach a final agreement. Why? It doubles the likelihood of future shutdowns. And in a time of global crisis, we should promote stability and not chaos. Reading a little bit further, that plan is sure to make for a busy and likely chaotic next 2 months that could bring Congress to the brink of another shutdown. Unless, of course, Johnson just decides in advance to go ahead and act like a Democrat, but that's neither here nor there. House Republicans have been forced to punt on a handful of appropriations bills because of disagreements within the conference. Johnson, however, appears up for the task as he settles into his new role. Not much of a honeymoon in this job, he told CNBC. The crises are too great. Okay, let's talk some more about this. I have a question, and I'll ask it again. What the hell was the point? Johnson just gave the Democrats everything they could ever want and didn't do a single solitary damn thing to fight for supposed principle of reducing government spending. I mean, after all, that is what the Republicans stand for, isn't it? Or maybe they just like spending it a little bit better or a little bit less than the Democrats do. Not an ounce of fight, not an ounce of strategy, not an ounce of anything, just a clean CR, keep everything where it currently is right now, and we'll work on the appropriations bills. Part of them will be done in January, and part of them will be done in February. Assuming, again, of course, that Johnson actually stands up and fights. And I said it last night, and I'll say it again right here. If he's not going to fight right now, I'm not really banking a whole lot on the possibility that he's going to do it next year. So at this point, I'm not going to lie. I am very disappointed. Should I be? Probably not. I've been around the block long enough to know how these sort of things go. But then again, I'm still just enough of an idealist that I actually like to believe that when someone tells me they're going to do something, they actually go ahead and do it. Call me crazy like that. But there's one more article I want to refer to, and this, I think, is what sort of galls me the most. I want to take you to Politico.com. Headline, Conservatives hold back on Johnson's ouster threat but plot other payback. Article is written by Jordan Carney, Olivia Beavers, and Sarah Ferris. I don't want to focus so much on what is proposed in the headline, but there's one part of this I really want to get into, because if this is true, then frankly, I'm even more aggravated with what Speaker Johnson did. And this is just absolutely infuriating if true. One sign of success, Johnson staved off disaster on the floor Tuesday in real time, talking down a group of conservatives who wanted to block a massive health, labor, and education spending bill. The speaker's pitch, according to Representative Norman, Republican of South Carolina, he had a plan to jam the Democrat Senate and cut spending in the full-year funding legislation Congress now has to pass in January and February. But House Freedom Caucus members, in a meeting attended by Johnson and another ultra-conservative ally, Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, said that they had their own strategy to make Senate swallow spending cuts now rather than later. Johnson clearly chose to go another route. Okay, here's what's really bugging me about all this, beyond the fact that we just basically punted into next year. If what is being reported in this article at Politico is true, House Republicans had a plan in place ready to go where they feel they could have forced Senate Democrats to actually have to take spending cuts. Johnson torpedoed their plan. He never let it go into fruition. On the grounds, he says, he had a plan of his own that would do the same thing in January and February when we come back to this same situation all over again, and supposedly by that point, the appropriations bills are all said and done. Now, laying aside whether Johnson actually has a plan or not, my point is this. Let's assume for a moment he does. You can fight them now, or you can fight them later. You can implement your plan now that makes Senate Democrats accept spending cuts, or you can wait till January. I have a question for Speaker Johnson. All things being equal, why wait till January and February? If the House Republican caucus has a foolproof plan ready to go that would make the Democrats have to take spending cuts, then why put this off? If everything is baked in and ready to go, all you got to do is just turn it loose. Why are you delaying this fight? What tactical advantage is there to do it? You know you're going to have to, right? I mean, Speaker Johnson, you do realize sooner or later you're going to have to fight the Democrats on this. If you're really going to stand down federal spending levels, you're going to have to do it sooner or later. So why did you torpedo the House Freedom Caucus? Like I said, I am not a happy man. This is a golden opportunity, or was a golden opportunity, to actually fight back and try and reduce some of this spending and get our fiscal house in order. And like I said, Johnson punted into next year. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? Do me a favor, like I said earlier, as we get ready to wrap this thing up. Leave a comment below. If you're not a sub to my channel, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up, share the video around, and do everything you can to spread the word about our electronic front porch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I will see you next time.